This is VSiN, the sports betting network. This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Here at Money Moves VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, Sirius XM Channel 158. We're live from downtown Las Vegas, Circa Resort and Casino. He's Jonathan Von Tobel. I'm Stormy Buonantony. Quick scores for you real quickly. The Brew Crew tying this thing up in Detroit, 3-3 in the top of the seventh right now. Atlanta pulling away in D.C., a 6-2 edge on the Nats, and still tied at 1 between the Phillies and Cubs where things sit right now. For inquiring minds, Padres Rockies set for first pitch in about 10 minutes. The Pod Squad, minus 156, moneyline favorites to bounce back following yesterday's 8-3 loss at Coors Field. Matt Waldron on the hill, run total there 10.5. Still to come this hour on the program, we've got a trio of Game 3s to preview in both the NBA and NHL postseason, and lots of NFL draft talk upon us as we're just about 5 hours away, 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern. Things are going to get going out there in Pittsburgh. And to get us started here, very excited for Patrick Finley to join us on the Progressive Guest Line. Covers the Chicago Bears closely for the Chicago Sun-Times. You can follow him on X as well, at Patrick Finley. First of all, happy draft day. How are you today? It's like Christmas for everybody around here.
It's the longest day of the year because you wake up and it's only 8 hours until the fun stuff starts. But I'm a lifelong Padre fan, so if you want to talk about Matt Waldron and whether the knuckleball works at altitude, we can do that too. We got plenty of time.
Let's go. I'm here for it. Well, we can save that for another day. I know we have priorities here with the draft. But as a Padres fan myself, I appreciate the point.
Good.
Let's get into all the action for today, though. Obviously, it's going to take a little while. You mentioned 8 hours before things get going. Pick 25 in round one for the Chicago Bears. For them to go with a defensive lineman or an edge rusher, minus 120 favorites, that seems to be the position of need and position that people think at least might fall at that spot. How do you see pick 25 going?
Yeah, I think it's more likely an edge rusher than anything else. I think there's a world where there's a good left tackle still available, and if so, the Bears are going to have to think long and hard about it. But, you know, dating back months when you talk to people who know a lot about this draft, what they say about the Bears is they need an edge rusher, and there will be at least one or two that they like available at 25, and they think that the best course of action is to just sit there and let the draft come to them, which is something that we're not used to up here because this is the latest they've picked in round one in 15 years, if you can believe that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, with polls and the way that this front office operates, but you're also in new territory. But what have we learned from them in the way they operate in these drafts? Do they move back and forth? Do you trust that they're going to make the right selection here?
Ryan likes to move back on draft day on day two. You see a lot of that happening over his previous 4 drafts. It's just weird, though. In round one, his first year here, they didn't have a pick because the Bears had traded for Justin Fields the year before. But, he was in the top 10 in the 3 years since, drafting Darnell Wright, then taking Caleb Williams and Roma Dunze, then last year taking Colston Loveland. It's just such a different world when you're picking in the top 10 and you can just choose kind of the platonic ideal of the position that you're going for, as opposed to now where, let's face it, especially in this draft where there aren't a lot of blue chippers, everybody they can get at 25 is going to have a flaw. It's just a matter of what flaw they're comfortable with.
Curious from your standpoint, obviously, like we know how important for all teams, right, the GM and head coach relationship is, but how invested and how much involvement do you anticipate Ben Johnson having in the decision-making room with Ryan Poles?
A lot, and he had a lot last year as well. The Bears, when they decided to hire Ben Johnson, in a lot of ways kind of caught up with the rest of the NFL, a world where the coach is the center of your building. And that wasn't really the case at Hallis Hall until they hired Ben. He and Ryan Poles work hand in hand here, but the way the Bears like to explain it is it's on Ben and the coaching staff to tell them exactly what kind of player they need and exactly what kinds of traits they want, and then it's on the scouting department to go find those people.
Patrick, I know you said obviously when you're picking where they're at, you do have to wait to see how the board breaks down. But in terms of guys that they have met with and players that you have seen and watched in terms of film or anything else or scouts you've talked to, are there maybe 1 or 2 players that stick out to you that could be matches for Chicago in that area?
I mean, the question to me that really sticks out is what happens if Akeem Mesidor is there and Keldrick Falk is there? Mesidor, the edge rusher from Miami, he's 25 years old. Keldrick Falk from Auburn is 20 years old. Those are very, very different kinds of players and kinds of human beings. Just think of, I think back to my own life. I was probably a much better employee at 25 than I would have been at 20. And, what the Bears have to weigh here is, are they going for the upside of somebody like Falk, who they can develop, and somebody who, if they get to a second contract, he's still only 25 years old? Or with Mesidor, who, his film is unbelievable. He's a joy to watch play football. But, that might only be a 4 or 5 year thing if he sticks around, because then you've got to give him a contract extension when he's almost at 30. And in the NFL, being almost 30 is being really, really old.
Patrick Finley, the Chicago Sun-Times, joining us here on the Progressive Guest Line. Yes, we're talking all things NFL draft, but big picture for the Bears. They come off of a season where they make the playoffs. You see some of the growth with Caleb Williams. Where do you see them in the pecking order of the NFC North right now?
Boy, that's a great question. I don't know that they're going to win the NFC North again this year. And part of that is because, let's face it, they're not as good on paper right now as they were when the season ended. They had to move DJ Moore. They had to cut Tremaine Edmonds, both of them for cap reasons. They let Kevin Byard go. He was the team captain and led the NFL in interceptions. Deshaun Wright, who I believe led the NFL in total takeaways, he leaves via free agency. So does Jaquan Brisker. And they replace those guys with Kobe Bryant and just kind of a lot of, depth. What they're betting on here is for Caleb Williams to make that leap in year 3. And if Caleb can do that, none of what we just talked about matters. They can, get a little worse on the fringes, and if the quarterback makes a huge jump, they're going to be in a really good spot. I think back, though, they're 11-6, and they won a lot of games at the buzzer, for lack of a better word. I don't know that sort of luck can continue. There's a world where they have a better team this year, and they end up with a worse record than they had last season. In fact, that's probably what I would bet on right now.
What are some late-round positional targets you think that they would take some flyers on to develop down the road?
Well, they need a starting safety to put with Kobe Bryant. I think you can find that probably in round 4, if not in round 3. So I would keep an eye out there. Center is a position that all of a sudden became a need when Drew Dahlman surprised the league by deciding to retire in early March. They traded for Garrett Bradbury from the Patriots to take his place, but he's on a 1-year deal. And I don't think he's going to get in the way if you have a young center that you decide that you want to develop here for a year. I wouldn't be surprised if they went and got another wide receiver either. For one, I think Ben Johnson, the offensive guru that Ben Johnson is, I'm sure he always likes to add at that position. And, as it is, they don't really have a third receiver. They have Roma Dunze and they have Luther Burden. And they have Colton Loveland, who's a tight end, and Cole Kmet, who's a tight end, and DeAndre Swift, who can catch passes. But they really are missing somebody in that third spot. It's Khalif Raymond right now. They can upgrade on that. And then cornerback, Tyreek Stevenson has been up and down in his Bears career, to say the least. He's the guy who had his back turned on the Hail Mary against the Commanders. He'll have a chance to start this year, but I wouldn't be surprised if a day 2 guy was there to challenge him this season.
So last thing before we let you go, I know you're obviously knee-deep specifically in the Bears side of the draft, but we all make our own mocks. We love looking at all the other things and kind of reading the tea leaves to see how things play out. Do you have any strong opinions for today's draft, like how many quarterbacks we're going to get or something crazy a team might do?
I don't know about crazy. I believe this. I think Caleb Downs is the best player in the draft. I think Jeremiah Love is the second best player in the draft. And I think you have to take Fernando Mendoza, obviously. Because he is the best quarterback there. 5 years from now, those might be the only guys we talk about with reverence from this year's draft. There are very few A pluses in this draft and a lot of Bs and B pluses. So, you hear people talk about, I think we're going to see a lot of trades, and maybe that's the case, but you got to find me the team that wants to move up here. Yeah. I think it's really easy in the discourse to talk about teams being willing to move down. But the reason they're willing to move down is the reason that most teams don't want to move up is because there aren't a whole lot of guys, I think, that are worth 2 or 3 picks.
It's a great point. Appreciate the breakdown, Patrick. Thank you so much for this. Have a great day.
Hey, you too. Thank you.
Patrick Finley covers the Bears for the Chicago Sun-Times. Appreciate that. I am in agreement with Caleb Downs, though. I think he's been one of the, you could argue that he was the best player in college football the last 2 years.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it goes to where we're at. I mean, I think the Fernando Mendoza stuff is actually pretty fascinating because, as he said, you agree with the thought process of he's the best quarterback, so you got to take him first overall. But I don't know, man. Some of the comps that are being thrown out there are absolutely ridiculous. I don't know if he's going to be Peyton Manning or if he might be more like Andy Dalton. And Andy Dalton had a pretty solid career, has a pretty solid career. But for a first overall selection, I think Fernando Mendoza is actually kind of like a microcosm of what this whole draft is, which is a bunch of guys who look like they're maybe above average, but I don't know if he'll work out the way a lot of people are trying to make you believe that he will.
You know what? It's piqued my curiosity for what we're going to get from a quarterback standpoint next season, because each of the last 2 years, the conversation has been, well, next year is when it's going to be the good batch. Next year is going to be the good, and that's exactly how we're talking about it this time. So when are we actually going to get a strong quarterback class again?
Next year.
You feel it?
Next year. Too bad the Colts don't have a first-round pick next year, or else I'd be like, let's go. They're going to be awful.
Now's the time.
Yeah, but Sauce Gardner, I don't know if you saw the media availability the other day. He said, I am the first-round pick. And it's like, yeah, you are, because they traded away the first-round pick for you.
Last 40 seconds before we go to the break. Did you end up adding anything else draft-wise prior to the 24-hour window? That's the one thing, by the way, that sucks for us as Nevadans, is that we can't get down on any of these late moves.
Just sweating out the quarterbacks today. Under 1.5 quarterbacks first round. I am stubborn. I refuse to believe.
I'm right there with you.
Not a good number, but still, I refuse to believe.
And it's going to potentially, if that does happen and we're correct in our thinking, lead to another day where we have viral moments of a quarterback in the green room that is just waiting around, hoping for his name to be called.
Fernando Mendoza?
Ty Simpson, he's not there. He's watching with his family.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, I forgot about that.
ESPN's Taylor McGregor will be at his house, kind of getting some of the updates from the family there. Ty Simpson, however, will be at the draft in Pittsburgh. Some of the pig.
He's roasting a whole
pig.
pig.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't hear that. Can we get one of those in the studio tonight? Let's go.
So you're listening to this podcast because you want an edge. But what if I told you you're only halfway there? You've got the mindset. Now it's time to get the toolkit to match. Here's the thing. Pro bettors spend thousands on data and tools. But what they don't want you to know is that you can get the same edge for a fraction of the cost with VSiN Pro. VSiN Pro gives you access to expert picks, public betting data, prop projections, powerful tools, analytics, and more. Just tap the link in the description and see why thousands of bettors are already using VSiN Pro to cash more bets.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Roll along here, Money Moves, VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, Sirius XM Channel 158. Stormy, Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you as we're just counting down the hours and minutes to draft night out there in Pittsburgh. We'll see on pins and needles who's going to go number 2 overall. We're still waiting to find out on that one. Although
if the Raiders take all 8 minutes, I think there should be
they're going to. We're going to get every ounce of story they can suck out of Fernando Mendoza's everything. And it's just, that's just what it's going to be.
The clock should be now, and then you should have to make your pick the second the draft starts.
Okay. We're going to keep our AFC West theme going, though, here as we welcome you back to the program. Nick Kosmider, kind enough to join us on the Progressive guest line. Denver Broncos beat reporter for The Athletic, been covering the team a long time for various publications. 2023 Colorado Sports Writer of the Year. Thank you for joining us. Happy draft day.
Yeah, happy draft day to you guys too. Although for the Broncos, it's not quite draft day. They have to wait another day. They're probably going to be watching the first round in their sweatpants, I'm guessing.
That's a great point. We should probably start there since the Broncos are picking tomorrow because they traded away their first round pick to Miami in the trade for Jalen Waddle last month. I guess before we get to how things might play out in the draft moving forward, what was your opinion on how that played out with Waddle, and how do you see him making an impact in Sean Payton's offense?
Well, real quick funny story is that I put out one of our mock drafts the morning of the Waddle trade, and I had picked for the Broncos Omar Cooper Jr. because to me the idea that they needed a playmaker, an injection of talent for their passing game was probably priority one in my mind for this team. And then within hours of publishing that mock draft, it became completely useless because they traded that pick for Jalen Waddle. I think it's absolutely what they needed. They needed somebody who can operate in the middle of the field in a way that they just really didn't have on this roster. And there's few better in the league in terms of just being able to kind of create that space as a route runner. And then what Sean Payton says, it's not just that he's fast, it's that he stops fast. So a lot of what they try to do, with some of the option routes in the middle of the field, I think that's really going to open up some things for Bo Nix. So they had to go out, they pay the heavy price, a first-round pick, a third-round pick. But for a team that is certainly in its Super Bowl contending window, they needed another big offensive piece, and so that's why they did it.
As it stands right now, like you mentioned, they won't pick until the 62nd selection. But how do you think the acquisition of Waddle changes the way they'll approach their draft starting with 62?
Yeah, I mean, this is a team, when you look at the roster, there's really not a lot of holes. I mean, they re-signed most of the free agents who contributed to last year's 14-3 team. Whether it's J.K. Dobbins, the running back, bringing back, both veteran inside linebackers, Alex Singleton, Justin Sternad. It really is largely the same team. So when I look at this draft, I think about depth. Where do you need to continue to sort of add parts for the future? And really, offensive line is the one that comes to mind. This is a group that's probably going to start the same offensive line for the third year in a row. But Mike McGlinchey, Garrett Bowles, Ben Powers, all going to be over 30 during this season. And Ben Powers, the left guard, this is his last year of his contract. So they've done a really good job sort of developing offensive linemen who they get in the undrafted ranks, a couple tackles that have added some depth there. But I think this could be a draft where you see them invest some real draft capital, whether it's their second-round pick or one of their 2 fourth-round picks, in order to kind of build that offensive line, because Bo Nix's big contract is coming in a couple years. And right now the Broncos have one of the highest paid offensive lines in the league. They're going to have to get a little bit younger and a little bit cheaper on the offensive line. And so I think creating a sustainable unit up front, I think that'll be part of the priority for this draft.
I saw in your latest mock, you did go offensive lineman for the round 4 pick for round 2 linebacker. And I heard general manager George Payton say recently there were kind of 6 players they were targeting to use that first pick for Friday at 62. You went linebacker in round 2. Do you think that could be a position that they've been looking most into for that early selection?
I think there's a good chance of that. And in large part because when you look at sort of the way that the draft is stacked, there's going to be a fair amount of inside linebacking talent, whether it's Jacob Rodriguez of Texas Tech, Anthony Hill Jr. of Texas, C.J. Allen of Georgia. Those are just a couple of names that could sort of be available for them in that area. And I think I mentioned they re-signed Alex Singleton, Justin Sternad, to kind of short, manageable deals. But they do need kind of, I think, a future there at that position. Singleton, 32 years old. Justin Sternad going to be 30 this year as well. So they need to get a little bit younger at that spot and have, again, it's another one of those kind of like the offensive line where they need to start building a little bit toward the future. But they really are in good position to kind of be, we get tired of hearing like the best player available, but they really are a good example of this just based on where they are right now. I think the only position that would like shock me if they drafted it in the second round would obviously be quarterback. I'd be pretty surprised if they used their second round pick on a wide receiver after what they, but really nothing else would surprise you, just again, because they're pretty well depthed at most positions. And this is really just kind of about 2027 and beyond.
So, Nick, with the first overall selection expected to be Fernando Mendoza, are the Denver Broncos crippled with fear that he will be in the division for the next 10 years?
Well, I mean, I think when you look at part of what you look at fear-wise with the Raiders is they know the Kubiak, they kind of know the Kubiak system well, right? Gary Kubiak, of course, the head coach here when the Broncos won the Super Bowl. So I think there's a lot in the building who really believe that he is going to do a really good job turning that franchise around quickly. And obviously they went out and spent all the money before Max Crosby came back, added to that roster and everything like that. So this division, the Broncos won it last year. The Chargers had their problems with their offensive line that probably kept them from really getting there. But if Joe Alton, Rashawn Slater are healthy, that team is going to be a lot to deal with. And then, of course, the Kansas City Chiefs, I don't think anybody expects them to stay down the way that they were a year ago. So, it might take the Raiders a year or two, but I think there's some healthy fear of what they could ultimately be, especially if Mendoza, kind of becomes that guy in short order.
Nick, thanks for the time today. We really appreciate it. And I was going to say, don't work too hard today, but I guess you don't really have to today. Just waiting for tomorrow. Thank you.
I'm going to sit back and enjoy it just like everybody else. So I appreciate it. You guys enjoy the draft as well.
There we go. Yes, enjoy it like a fan. Always nice. I wanted to bring to your attention real quickly, JVT, as I kind of joked at the beginning of the segment about the draft starting at 2. We have more movement, once again, for the number 2 overall pick. Essentially pick 'em minus 115 each way on both David Bailey and Arvell Reese right now.
Yeah, I mean, so we've talked about the market moves on these days and whether or not there's something. Early market moves, I think, don't really mean anything. But if there's a strong move in one direction here today, I think you can really buy into it. But there's been conflicting reports on this. So whether or not that's just the Jets throwing out a bunch of stuff and people are buying it, either way, market doesn't really buy into what's being sold at this point. But it's also reports that it's going to be Reese. So I don't know. I don't know why the market's being slow to keep up with those reports, but are buying hook, line, and sinker the fact that there's going to be maybe a Carson Beck sighting in the first round.
Conflicting reports and also maybe a Freudian slip. I wanted to play this sound real quickly from SNY of David Bailey getting interviewed this week and being asked about the Jets.
What have your interactions been like with the Jets?
It's been good, man. I've talked with Monty on the phone a couple of times. Obviously, they canceled my 30 visit, so I wasn't able to get around the facility and kind of have like an in-depth conversation with all the staff and everything. But I had a great interaction with them at the combine, and then obviously like whatever FaceTime calls we've been having. So,
if you were picked to be on the Jets, how do you think you fit in with that team?
I think I fit in great. I mean, I think it'd be a great scheme for me. I'd be open to learning whatever position that they need me to play. I think I'm going to bring a versatile skill set. So, I'm just open to anything.
So naturally, JVT, there's a lot of reaction when people first heard this clip because he says Monty in reference to what we all believe is Monty Ossenfort, who's actually general manager of the Arizona Cardinals. But could that just have been a Freudian slip, as I teased, to Darren Muji, who is the Jets general manager? Then there's the other layer of him not doing the top 30 visit, which in my mind could mean one of two things. Like, one, it's actually that they feel like they have good confidence in what they know about the guy and didn't feel like they needed to bring him in and find out more about other players. Or there's like, oh, they didn't bring him in, and should we be reading into that? So just, lots of layers. I'm just saying.
This draft needs to start. This needs to get over.
Arvell Reese, by the way, out to minus 125 now.
It could be that he just accidentally said something wrong.
That's what I said. I think I can.
But no, but you're not like there's headlines. There's headlines about this. Like, I mean, we need to get this draft going.
Well, do you remember when Will Levis, when the Reddit post went wild that everyone said he was going to go at the top of the draft and then he's sitting there all day?
Well, yeah. I mean, that was somebody was alleging that they were close to Will Levis and that they were being told that he was told that he was selected. So, and people just bought that immediately and bet into it. This is, I don't know, it's a slip of the tongue. Who cares?
So
but you're not the only one.
So here's where we sit. So, yes, as I just said, like Arvell Reese now, 10-cent adjustment since the first time I mentioned it, minus 125 now. Bailey, minus 115 to go to. Number 3, where the Arizona Cardinals are set to pick, Jeremiah Love, a plus 135 favorite, followed by Reese, plus 175, and Bailey at plus 330. So that's how it shakes out right now. Still TBD on if the Cardinals are going to be able to keep that pick or if they want to trade out of it. And so Jeremiah Love, that's a whole other conversation of what ultimately is going to happen with him.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a good point by Patrick Finley, who joined us from the Chicago Sun-Times. There's a reason why the Cardinals want to move back, but you need somebody to want to move up, and I don't think there's that many people.
Up at vsin.com right now, we have Matt Euman's mock draft. I know a handful of our guys as well, if you go to their Twitter pages, have uploaded their own mocks as well. But at the website, we've got a ton of stuff going on, not only for the draft, but the NHL, NBA postseason, Major League Baseball best bets each and every day. And we've got a spring special going on right now where you can join us for a one-time payment of $59. That's 50% off what the regular price is. vsin.com/subscribe so you can learn more.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
You've got the group chat, you've got the opinions. Now it's time to put your money where your mouth is with Cut, the social betting platform that lets you bet directly against your friends and other users on sports, politics, pop culture, even personal bets, whatever you can think of. Every bet fully customizable and pre-funded, so nobody can flake out on you if they lose. Plus, you get cash back on every single bet you make. Use the promo code VSIN to get a 20% deposit bonus on your first deposit. Download Cut today at KUTT.com or in the App Store. And again, use that promo code VSIN. That's VSIN. Stormy and Buonantony. Jonathan Von Tobel with you. Few more scores. Braves doing everything they can here, pulling ahead And it looks like they should close it out 7-2 with the total for this game in the balance, 9.5. Tie game between the Brewers and Tigers. So coming down to the nitty gritty in the ninth there at 4-4 apiece. Cubs up 5-2 in the fifth over the Phillies, and the Rockies with a solo shot. Mickey Moniak, second swing of the second batter on Matt Waldron, puts Colorado ahead early on San Diego.
Mickey Moniak, a former
Angel.
There we go.
There
Come
we
on.
go.
You're
I'm
keeping up
getting
with
better.
the game. Yeah, you're getting better at it. What happened yesterday, by the way, in that series? I couldn't remember.
Okay, I don't want to talk about it.
Okay.
I don't know why you have to be the way that you are.
Padres lost. That's the whole point here. Tomoyuki Sagano actually had a pretty good start. We talked about him maybe being a fade candidate, but that was not the case. Pitched pretty well for the Colorado Rockies.
We talked a little bit earlier about the Thunder's win in Game 2 yesterday, and we hadn't seen an update on Jalen Williams, but you just saw one come across your feed?
Grade 1 hamstring strain. He is considered week to week. As we were talking about Victor Wembanyama and this injury, would expect that he is going to be out for the rest of this series. Game 5 of the set, should it be needed, is not until next Thursday, so it is stretched out a bit. Also depends, too, I'm assuming that they would love an extended series between Houston and Los Angeles, as they will be waiting for the winner of that set, too. So we know he's week to week. Grade 1, which I think is the more mild of the grades, if I remember correctly. Yes, thank you. So I think that is one where, all right, week to week, we'll see what happens. We're going to bench him for the rest of the series, and hopefully he can get healthy as we get into the next round. Maybe misses a game or two. We'll see. You
think OKC sweeps?
I think they have the capability of doing it. I think that it's human nature if you go up 3-0 to then just kind of, the gentleman's sweep, right? Go up 3-0.
Yeah.
That, by the way,
you're one at home,
that should be noted. Every year we talk about this. The gentleman's sweep is you go up 3-0, you give them game 4 so they don't get embarrassed in front of their own crowd, and then you go back home and you end it in 5.
It's not just a 5-1. It's not just
it's
a 4-1.
Correct. Because
okay.
I've heard all sorts of no.
You're very sensitive about that.
A gentleman's sweep. Or it's not lose game 1 and then sweep the last 4. It is specifically because the gentlemanly act is to not embarrass the team in front of their fans. Mm-hmm. So you go and you win the first 3, and then you say, here you go, little guy. We'll give you a win. So you at least can leave home with something.
And then you get to seal the deal at home in front of your own fans.
And then you curb stomp them in game 5. Yeah.
Another thing that kind of came out of that Thunder Suns game last night was Devin Booker's comments post-game on the podium, calling out the NBA officials. Weird play in the third quarter. Booker gets fouled, kind of threw the ball behind him a little bit. Alex Caruso was calling for the tech, and the officials inevitably give it. Booker can't believe it and was very pointed in his words after the game. Take a listen.
In my 11 years, I haven't called a ref out by name, but James was terrible tonight, through and through. It's bad for the sport, bad for the integrity of the sport. People are going to start viewing this as a WWE, if they're not held responsible. It's hard. It just feels disrespectful. I know I haven't won a championship in this league, but I have been in it for 11 years now. So to get to this point, to be treated like that, for me to even be saying something out loud, it's bad.
And there's 2 parts to this. The other thing was kind of the unnatural move that he got called an offensive foul on, and then SGA, very soon after, did the same thing on the other end of the court and didn't get called for it. And Doris Burke was addressing that on the broadcast. So he's going to get fined for that. He knows the rules, but bad calls both ways. Do you agree?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, look, the issue, the Thunder have been a team that is, I wouldn't say exploiting, but is working the rules the way they know they can. We saw Chet Holmgren also, I think it was Simmons who tweeted out the clip of him flopping after getting a little bit of contact and saying, man, I hope he recovers. I hope he's okay. This is probably an issue with the way that the league calls these games. I don't think it's overt in terms of favoritism toward the Oklahoma City Thunder. I mean, the Caruso thing, I think, is actually pretty smart gamesmanship for the most part. So do you remember, I looked this up because I wanted to get the year right, 2019, when actually Chris Paul was playing for the Oklahoma City Thunder. They were playing the Warriors, I believe it was, and Jordan Bell didn't tuck his jersey in, and Chris Paul snitched on him and got a technical foul called because that's part of the rules. You have to have your jersey tucked in when you're on the floor. I mean, it's gamesmanship, man. If you can get them to call the T, call it. It is kind of soft for them to actually do it. I also thought the throwing behind him, I thought he was trying to save the ball from going out of bounds.
So did I.
Yeah, I thought it was a crappy call. They get him all the time, but I don't think it's anything pro-Thunder, and we'll see what he gets in terms of a fine here.
Okay, let's look toward tonight.
Also, it doesn't matter because they'll be done in 2 more games.
So it is going to be a sweep then.
Like I said, Zach Cohen thinks they're not going to, but yeah, I mean, what have you seen in the first 2 games that makes you think outside of maybe the human nature of Game 4 letting them have one?
Yeah, that's kind of all.
Right.
I feel like if they really want to do it, they'll just do it. So the game of the night, though, in my opinion, and I would assume yours as well because of how much you have hyped up this Denver Nuggets team.
No.
Nuggets Timberwolves tonight.
I mean, they're hurt. Aaron Gordon is not going to be out there today, potentially. That's worrisome.
Still 2.5-point road favorites.
Yep, calf injury, questionable. So I like this game under the total. I bet this under 234.5. I still think 233.5 is the way to go. There's a couple of things here. So last game, it was kind of, I don't know how much you got to watch. No, you were on the ice, I believe, right? Yeah, okay. So you didn't get to watch it. They were very helter-skelter in that game, Denver was. I mean, in terms of possessions, it wasn't really that fast. But if you watched them in the way that they were playing, I mean, the half-court offensive possessions were really fast. In terms of offensive transition numbers, they were supplementing their offense in a really big way off of live rebounds. It's just generally not the way I think Denver wants to play. And it's also just not good for them because they were getting toasted on defense. They were trying to play this zone defense that they were getting burned by. Jokic has to play better defensively than he did in that game. There were so many times where he would get caught out in space against a guard, and he would just try to draw a charge, and the guard would just say, okay, well, I'm just going to Euro by you, and we're going to get a layup. They got killed at the rim. I think one of the big strategies for Denver today, especially if Aaron Gordon's not out there, an athlete, a guy who can play above the rim, and a good defender, is that they're going to try to slow this down. They're going to keep trying to play zone. They're going to play a more half-court oriented style of offense so that then on defense, they can get their defense set if they're more efficient on offense, and they don't have to gas out some of these guys. If you even look at Jokic and the way that he played in that game, Stormy, he was tired by the end of that game. A lot of shots were hitting front iron, which is usually a sign that you're fatigued. You're not getting your legs under you to take some of those shots. I think that a big strategy for Denver will be cut down on the possessions tonight with many different ways. So if that's going to be the case, we're also at a point here, if you remember, game one on Saturday opened up at 230. We were as high as 230.5. Go back to game two. I'm sorry, my memory fails me. Don't think you were here. But game two of the series between Toronto and Cleveland, one of the plays for game two for me was under because they had adjusted the total despite the fact that the possessions and the offensive efficiency, so many things screamed that the game went over for some oddities in the way that it was played. Same thing here where we're not seeing anything crazy in terms of tempo, in terms of three-point shooting or anything like that, and yet our total is up 4 points from our original opener. I think that we're just I'm going to play against the adjustment on the total. I think you're going to get a strategy from Denver to slow this thing down. And market would agree, at least to an extent. Again, this was as high as 234.5. It's now 233.5. One shop showing 232.5. So I would expect that we continue to head south, and I would say that the under is the play. And sidewise, my heart says Denver.
I know.
I would hope so. I would hope that it is Denver, but we will see if that's the case. And look, Anthony Edwards looked pretty healthy. So it's funny, the curse of just making observations and talking and, yapping with my big mouth, although this was through text. I texted the Harvard Handicrappers group chat and was like, man, I don't think Anthony Edwards is healthy. And then I think he yammed over Nikola Jokic on the next possession. So
you have some crazy timing with your texts, I swear. It happens very, very frequently. It's almost like the broadcaster jinx, but it's the JVT text jinx.
I don't think that's true. I'm going to try it right now. I'm going to text you. I'm going to text you. Man, I don't have any money whatsoever.
This is an interesting night broadcasting-wise, though, because we have the draft, the NBA, and NHL postseason all on at once.
It's not an interesting broadcast.
And, well, no. So all I was going to say is if you're the type of person that doesn't have multiple screens available to you, kind of sucks if you're trying to flip back and forth between anything that you can't because the NBA games are on Prime. So
no, you have multi-screen. YouTube TV. Oh,
no,
I see
you
what you're saying.
can't.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Well, so my television has the ability you can split it.
You can split apps?
So, I can put an app on one and then...
What kind of TV do you have?
I don't know, just a TV.
Fancy schmancy.
Yeah.
Money bags over here. You won too many NBA bets? Got a new TV?
I don't know. It was a few years ago. It's kind of like an old, not old TV, but it's like a 2-year-old TV. OLED, flat screen. I get very scared when I have to move it because I think I'm going to snap it in half.
I'm trying to figure out...
That's because I'm just so strong, not because the TV is thin.
Because you've got the gains.
Gains with a Z. That is what we say.
Pumping it up, getting yoked. When what's the guy's name with the bald head? Vin Diesel.
I was going to say, there's only one of them out there, so we got to get the guess right.
No, that was the thing. Was that ever a slang word that your friends used growing up for when you were getting in shape? Like dieseled out?
No.
That was something that people said in my circles.
I hung out with cool kids.
Is that? I don't believe that for a second.
Oh, 100%. Come on now.
I've seen pictures.
You've even said it. The crew could say it. I mean, everybody likes me.
You're so likable and so
100%.
positive and so nice. That's why everyone on Twitter says such nice things about you every day as well.
Oh, I have a comment to read, by the way.
Okay. Oh, no. Should we be scared?
No, it's about me.
Okay, best bets after this on Money Moves. Stick around.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Up this Thursday draft day edition of Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
You got any plans later?
Jonathan Von Tobel with you. Okay. So I just told JVT in the commercial break, and you guys tell me if I'm wrong.
This is a relatable topic.
I think so. So there are a lot of people I know who are in town this weekend in the broadcast world because of NAB, and a lot of people were out here, and some people stayed a little bit longer to enjoy Vegas and stuff. And so someone reached out to me like a month ago saying, hey, I'm going to be in town.
Real quick, Spencer Torkelson walks it off 5-4, bottom of the ninth.
Okay.
There you go.
There we go. I just lost my train of thought. What were we talking
Somebody,
about?
NAB town plans.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
So
Come
sorry.
on now.
So
Focus
like a
up.
month ago, letting me know that they were going to be in town, I was like, okay, yeah. Like when you get closer to coming in town, let me know, and I'll see what my schedule's like if I'm in town, because I'm doing NHL playoffs and stuff. I don't know if I'll be there. Never heard from the person again until just now. Just said, I'm done for the day at 3. I'm ready to hang out, basically. What?
This sounds like this is on you.
Why is that on me?
They warned you ahead of time they were coming. NAB is a set core of days.
The literal follow-up was, as we get closer, like, check back in with me. I'll let you know my schedule, because I didn't know my NHL schedule.
You're here.
I am here.
You got nothing going on?
Yes, I do. I have a life.
Your plan later is to eat pizza. Like, come on now.
My own personal medium stuffed crust pizza, thank you very much. Yes, I have big plans tonight, and I'm not going to interrupt that. Is that terrible of me? Is that horrible?
I just feel like this person cares about you and wants to see you, and was really looking forward to probably spending some time.
I really like the person too, but I don't know if I feel comfortable. I can't invite them to somebody else's house because I'm watching the draft at someone else's house as well.
Why not?
So I don't know. It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. Now I feel bad saying no. Now you made me bring it up on the radio, so it's for everyone to hear.
I think everybody's been there before.
I did want to also thank our audience, as always, for tweeting into the show and saying such kind things. You got a recent tweet?
Nobody tweeted me. Arvell Reese is up to $1.65 favorite, -165.
You said someone did tweet you. You said you wanted to bring it up.
Somebody commented. You can reach out to the show in many different facets and forms, including commenting on our YouTube videos, in which one man said JVT is a dumbass. So, yeah, NBA hack and not great. To which I did respond, by the way. I like to respond to all of our comments with a very simple thank you for watching. And a smiley emoji.
80, 57, and 2.
Don't do that.
Plus 22.3 net units on the NBA this season, and enters today on a 4-game win streak.
Don't do that. That is so.
Sorry.
That is so.
Well,
lame.
you did really well this NBA season. I feel like I should have come to your defense, just like I did against that Bengals fan that one day here at Circa.
That's a good story. You almost fought somebody for my honor during football season.
I didn't almost fight them, but...
You did. It was actually very funny. You don't talk to him like that. That's my favorite line that I've heard you say.
Leave me alone.
Anyway.
I do have one more thing, though, to discuss quickly. Actually, let's do our best bets, and then we can kind of end on this. So what have you do your recap from yesterday, and what have you added to today? Wait, what is that on the recap? Oh, it's a green check mark for a win you got in the NBA last night.
Yeah, Magic Pistons under. Didn't even have to worry about it. That thing came in. It was easy. So Pistons and Magic, I think is going to be the theme of this series. Continue to bet it. I think round 210, 208, that should probably be where we're at. So game 3, I'll be back in the well for Magic and Pistons under 218.5 the winner yesterday. We'll go back to it for game 3. For today, do have a trio of plays. I hope I put this in the right doc. I did. Okay. First off, we'll take the low-hanging fruit. I don't really care. I'll get caught. Hand to the cookie jar, whatever cliche you want to use. Cavs -2.5. I believe wholeheartedly in this team more than I believe in myself. I think that this group is going to be able to go out there and absolutely just dog walk the Toronto Raptors. I think that there's a lot of matchup issues that the Raptors have here. And I think Darko's kind of grasping at straws with the pointing at Jakob Poeltl. It's not just Poeltl, man. They don't have the on-ball defenders in the backcourt to handle Donovan Mitchell or James Harden. The Cavaliers have lineup versatility that has really bothered them. I thought this was going to be a short series, and I think this is going to continue to be just that. So Cavs -2.5. Again, I'll go with the low-hanging fruit and ask them to just win by 3 or more today. Speaking of this game, by the way, RJ Barrett over 5.5 rebounds at +115. Also think that's worth adding here. If they do go small, if they do somewhat bench Jakob Poeltl, for lack of a better term, and they try to get a little bit smaller, more athletic, a little bit more switchable defensively, then I do think that means guys like Barrett, who are a little bit bigger, might have to slide up into that power forward spot and play a little bit bigger as well. Maybe they're going to, or he's going to, have to crash the glass a little bit more. Point of evidence here, game 2, They win a little bit smaller. They cut into Pirtle's minutes. Barrett had 9 rebounds. So I think big emphasis for Barrett today is going to be crash the glass, help us out there, and at a plus price, willing to take a risk with Barrett over 5.5 rebounds. And then last but not least, as we talked about earlier today and just a couple of minutes ago, Nuggets and Timberwolves under 234.5.
Okay.
All these plays, by the way, I used in the Killer Sports contest, too.
All right.
Which I need to make up ground on because not that I'm doing bad, I just haven't made enough picks. So I need to make 17 more selections before the first round ends.
Well, it's your own fault for not remembering the deadline because
forgetting.
you did well.
I'm actually doing well, but I just keep forgetting to put the picks in.
So that's a little bit frustrating, I would imagine, just on your own part. You know what? You're so busy setting your MLB daily fantasy lineup that you forget to do the important stuff.
Oh, man. Vinny Pasquantino yesterday had a very good day, and I forgot to play. Well, it's not that I forgot. He has not been hitting the ball well. And so when you don't perform well, you deserve to get benched. And Vinny P got benched, and then, of course, he had a good day. So what can you do?
I am with you on the low-hanging fruit today with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Bet that -2.5 earlier this morning, won double digits the first 2 games. I'm not a believer in the zigzag today. You and I both also team play on the under 1.5 quarterbacks, just as a reminder in today's NFL draft. Put that in yesterday before the 24-hour marker where we were cut off. That's the only NFL draft. I said this to you earlier this week. I don't know. This draft doesn't have the allure for me that it usually does. Previous years, I would come in with that, like at least 5 different bets that I had. And there are some things that I liked, but nothing I ultimately got down on really this year, which is kind of a little bit of a bummer.
Yes.
Okay, last thing I wanted to bring up with you.
Okay, I was going to say, yeah, you said you had something.
So, and the reason that this is fresh in my mind is because I just saw Paul Howard, who's going to be coming up next year with Mitch Moss for Follow the Money. And good reminder, so today's show, they're going to have a lot of stuff leading up to the draft. Paul Charchian on the program with some of his favorite plays. Later on, we have a lot of specialty draft coverage. Countdown to the draft with Matt Brown at 7 Eastern time. And then VSiN Primetime Draft Edition with Matt and Tim. So really, really good content covering you all day long ahead of the draft and during the draft as well. But Paul quote tweeted this guy.
Okay, this is going well.
No, but it's just a conversation topic. Chris Siliza, I think is how you say his name. He said, guy on speakerphone in a coffee shop for 10 minutes. Another guy politely asked him to use his headphones or hold the phone to his ear. Guy refuses and acts like he's been deeply insulted. What happened to manners or basic politeness? And this is very fresh in I know our minds because we had
tell the story here.
Yes, we had a meeting yesterday with one of our great bosses here at VSiN, Steve Cohen, at the coffee shop, coincidentally, up here at Circa. And as we're sitting there trying to have our little show meeting, there's a person next to us who is very loudly playing a very annoying song or TikTok or what. I couldn't tell what it was. Could you tell what it was?
No, not at all.
But
I also wasn't really listening to it, but yeah, I understand.
Just kept playing it.
Yeah.
Loud as can be, over and over again. Took a FaceTime call, was taking the FaceTime call loud as can be, over and over again, to the point where our boss, to counter the sound, pulls out his phone and plays, what is it, Judas Priest?
I believe so.
Plays Judas Priest loud to combat the sound. Did not make her stop, by the way.
I thought it did.
No.
I thought they stopped
it
at some
wasn't
point.
as much, but it kept going.
I mean, as evidenced by our show on a daily basis, I'm really good at like phasing out white noise and not paying attention when things are just really annoying and just in my ear constantly. You know what I mean?
That's rude. For one,
it took you a second.
That's rude. But for two, that I agree though. That is a big pet peeve of mine when people do that. One of the comments on here though is if you're talking at a coffee shop to another person, is that not the same thing as being on a FaceTime and talking to another? I do not think so. At all.
No, I mean, there's volume issues there and whatnot.
It's a very different thing.
Yeah, it's a slightly different thing. Because generally, the coffee shop has not exactly, but generally, as a former barista who has no other training in media whatsoever, remember I came straight from being a barista to the Vegas Stats and Information Network because I made Bill 80's coffee very well, and he felt pity upon me and gave me a job.
And you've never told anyone that half real, half fake story ever on this network.
Generally, as an expert in this category, it's got a library-esque vibe in a coffee shop. Right? Yeah. Like, it's not entirely quiet, but usually there's people working, doing things. Yeah, it's generally a quiet vibe. So, yeah, the speakerphone phenomena probably should be something that not happen. Also, it's just like, don't you want your private conversations to be private?
One would think. I heard a woman complaining to her friend heavily about her husband in an airport on a FaceTime, just ripping this guy to shreds. They hang up the phone and her husband, walks up.
Nice.
It was the craziest thing I've ever seen.
True love is what it sounds like.
But that's another thing. I know you don't care about my travels, but when people do that on airplanes It bothers me to no end.
How do they do that? You're supposed to go in airplane mode.
You can watch videos and music. You don't download podcasts. You don't play games. You don't.
I think it's risky.
You can do things on your phone in airplane mode. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You're supposed to wear headphones, but they don't.
I think it's risky to watch rated R movies on planes. I watched the one where Jennifer Lawrence is like a Russian agent, and there's a scene where she's like fully naked, and then like it just was bam like on my screen, and I was like, holy smokes, I got to turn this off.
Dim your screen, man.
Yeah.
On that note,
got to get one of those Carlos Boozer phones.
That's a wrap for us today. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out. We'll be back tomorrow. Excited to recap and grade the draft and, of course, push forward all the NBA and NHL postseason action. Follow the money coming up after this.